What's up? Happy Monday. I know you guys see that spreadsheet up there. You already know what's up today. That means that we are breaking down the 49ers roster. Fun times after preseason week 2. This is what we live for, right? Cut down day is just over a week away. In fact, there's a cut down day tomorrow. The 49ers have to go from 85 to 80. So, I mean, not a big one, but then a week from tomorrow it goes from 80 to 53. So that one's the big deal. But we have the spreadsheet ready, one of the many spreadsheets I've made this offseason to begin talking about how the 49ers are looking as we get closer and closer to the regular season. I hope everybody had fun watching the game yesterday. I am currently in Visalia, California. This is my childhood home at my parents' house because I'm making the drive back to the Bay Area from LA. I got home at 3 a.m. So those of you who were watching me tweet at 3 a.m. last night, that was right when I got here to Visalia, which is in the Central Valley. 3 hour drive from SoFi Stadium. Stopped at In-N-Out in Santa Clarita. That was good. Had a midnight meal and drove up through Bakersfield. Took 99, made it all the way here to Visalia, and I got, 3 more hours to go, but I don't have to be in the Bay Area for the next 49ers practice until Wednesday. So today, Kyle Shanahan did a conference call. We could get started with some news before we get into the spreadsheet right here. The 49ers will be missing Maurice Hurst for a while. He has a high ankle sprain. Remember, the high ankle sprain was the bane of the 49ers' existence in 2020. Well, they have their first one here for 2021. And it's just too bad because Maurice Hurst was playing well. He only took 4 snaps yesterday before he got hurt, but I thought he was explosive. He registered a pressure and a hit in those 4 snaps, and unfortunately, he hurt his ankle, I think, on the play that he delivered the hit. So that logjam along the 49ers defensive line might actually be solved in a way because of this, and we'll get into it as we take a look at this spreadsheet to my left when we get to the defensive line portion, because that really is, I think, the deepest position group on this 49ers team. It's something that we identified early when we were out of training camp, and it's something that's become even more apparent because when you look at that game yesterday, obviously everybody's going to focus on Trey Lance, who had 3 poor series and then follow that up with 3 good series and 2 really nice touchdowns for the 49ers. But the defense is the unit that consistently wowed for the 49ers, and it started up front. So after a monstrous 2019, the 49ers saw so many injuries along that defensive line in 2020. Well, hey, 2021, if they could stay healthy, and I know the Maurice Hurst injury is not a good step in that direction, but for the most part, this unit's still intact and they're still healthy. If they could stay that way, generally, how it is right now, because even in 2019, the 49ers had some injuries there. Well, I think they're going to be in business. You talk to Chris Kasarik, you talk to people around the 49ers, they think this defensive line can be special. This is the way I put it on Twitter yesterday. If Contavious Street and Jordan Willis are your 11th and 12th defensive linemen, you have a damn good defensive line. That's exactly where we stand with the 49ers right now. They have depth, they have power, they have excellence along that defensive line. Zach Kerr was talking about it last night at SoFi Stadium after the game. That's why he signed with the 49ers, because he thought that he could come in and compete for a championship caliber defensive line room under who he thinks is the best defensive line coach in the NFL, and that's Chris Kasarik. Anyway, we'll get to that in a bit. First things first, we're just going to go through this roster. Now, I'm going to talk more about the quarterback situation in a separate video because everybody seems to be wholly interested in that. And then, I'm going to get people commenting saying, oh, you didn't talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, and that whole issue enough on this video. But, I like to do things in depth. I like to get to the back of the roster because I think that that's, what's really fascinating in August at this time of the year. And I just don't want to skimp over the stuff that people are just salivating over right now as far as the quarterback room. So I know that there's a large amount of you that love the in-depth stuff, and it's a Venn diagram. It crosses over, this heavy crossover with those of you who really like talking about the quarterback stuff. So it means I have to do 2 videos. And if you've noticed, I've started posting a lot more lately too, just because on a 90 or 85 man roster, especially for a title contending team, and I think the 49ers have that kind of talent this year, there's just so much to talk about, so many little nooks and crannies of the roster to discuss. So I made an Alex Mack video the other day talking about the center's impact on the 49ers offense, particularly within Kyle Shanahan's scheme. I made a Jawan Jennings video the other day. I could go and talk 49ers 24/7. Somebody asked me if I sleep last night because I was tweeting at 3:30 a.m. The answer is no, I don't sleep during football season. I live and breathe this stuff, and this is a fascinating team to cover. So we can just talk 49ers all day. But the point of this video right now is going to be this roster. We're going to go over everything as far as the 53-man construction. And we're going to do it again after the game next week against the Raiders, which is going to be the dress rehearsal. So I'm going to make this bigger just for a second so you guys can see it. I'm also copying the link and putting it into the chat there so you guys have it. So just copy and paste that, stick it into Google, and you could play along with a spreadsheet while I go over it. But basically what you have here is the left side, gold, that is the projected 53-man roster for the 49ers. The right side, red, is the 85-man roster. So if you're not on the left side, on the gold side, you're not projected to make the team right now. There are several different color designations, but the most important ones right now, as far as stock that's either rising or falling, are green or red. So if you see green on there, it means a player that is in roster consideration or who has, roster questions surrounding him. So guys who aren't locks to make the roster, or guys who actually have a chance to make the roster, unlike some other players who have no shot. I am identifying whether or not that player is moving up or down within the perception of the public and the coaching staff. Because, obviously I do ask around. I do, have my sources of information. So I watch these games just like you guys do. I watch the film. I've already watched the replay of last night's win against the Chargers twice. And green means rising stock. Red means stock is going down. Some players stay neutral. Most players actually stay neutral. I only, color code this if I really think that there's going to be a significant, change after a certain game or a certain week of practice. And I'll get into my rationale with some of these players in a bit. Then you'll also see brown, which is currently injured, pink, which is headed to an injury list in all likelihood. So brown and pink have, something in common, but I think that the pink means that the injury, it's been indicated that it's more of a long-term thing that will send a guy to an injury list. And then obviously here you got the orange. That's for Alfredo Gutierrez, who's the 49ers international exception player. He won't make the 53-man roster, but there's, good chance he makes the practice squad because that international exception carries over to the practice squad. Anyway, we'll go through it position by position. Please, if you're asking questions and you want me to answer your question, these things come in kind of fast on the right. Ask a question about the position group that I'm on, because if we're on quarterback or running back, I'm not going to answer a question about linebacker. So keep your question relevant to what we're on, and maybe I'll get to it as we get through these position groups. So this means I can now zoom in and stay on the screen. And we'll start at quarterback. Quarterback is the basis of everything, right? Right now at QB, you have three guys. 49ers already cut Josh Rosen. An intriguing question that I'm not sure that Kyle Shanahan has an answer to yet is, will the 49ers carry 2 or 3 quarterbacks on their 53-man roster? Shanahan would like to carry 3, especially during, COVID times when you can have surprise roster situations where all of a sudden your top guy or guys are unavailable. So I think that Shanahan would like to carry 3. He's even said so. But you'll notice as we go through the rest of this 49ers roster that only carrying 2 and sticking Nate Sudfeld is right here, right onto the practice squad, just moving him from the left side to the right side, that would open up a roster spot for the 49ers, and it looks appetizing. I mean, the argument is that once you're down to Nate Sudfeld because Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance are unavailable, you're in trouble anyway. And Sudfeld has protected the ball well in training camp and in these preseason games. He hasn't thrown a pick yet. If the 49ers do get into emergency mode, all they want is a guy probably to hand it off and not turn it over and rely on what's looking to be a powerful defense. And if that's all that Sudfeld has shown, then they can easily get him onto the practice squad. In fact, Sudfeld doesn't have to clear waivers. The 49ers gave him $252,000 of guaranteed money in his contract, which is the practice squad veterans minimum. So they'd be able to cut him and re-sign him to the practice squad with a pre-existing agreement, which they already essentially have with Nate Sudfeld. So everything does line up for Sudfeld to neatly fit onto the 49ers practice squad. They just would have to be able to take the chance that in any given week, both Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance could get hurt on game day, and then they wouldn't have a quarterback. So then you'd have to have like Mohamed Sanu or somebody who can throw, be your emergency quarterback, or just run the Wildcat all game. That obviously would not be an ideal scenario. So the reason that you carry three is, just in case two guys get hurt. But, a lot of times that third guy is inactive anyway on game days. So I am starting to lean more and more toward the 49ers putting Nate Sudfeld on that practice squad. And now as we go further into this depth chart, you'll see the potential benefits of that. Again, there'll be a separate video talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, everything you want about the quarterback position. This one is about roster construction. So running back, this was a hot button issue on Twitter yesterday. I praised Wayne Gallman. Then I had a bunch of people, I guess you call them stands, right? I had a bunch of JaMycal Hasty stands in my mentions. Oh, JaMycal Hasty is better than Wayne Gallman. What are you talking about? I mean, guys, are we in such an adversarial age where you can't say that you like one of the running backs, one of the Shanahan running backs to make the 49ers roster without somebody having to jump in and think it's a competition with somebody else? I mean, every currently healthy 49ers running back is projected to make the roster. I get that people don't understand the whole idea that Shanahan likes the fact that he has two good quarterbacks with Garoppolo and Lance, but you should be used to this by now, running back. Shanahan has never been a one running back or two running back coach. I mean, this is a by committee system by design because most of these guys are a little bit smaller. The emphasis for Kyle Shanahan in the outside zone has always been speed, and there has been a high injury rate at the running back position. So if you look across the board here at running back with JaMycal Hasty listed in the fullback row just for space issues on my depth chart. If you look across the row, you have Elijah Mitchell currently out, shaded in brown, Jeff Wilson bound for an injury list because of his injury, his torn meniscus. He won't be back off the season. So what started as a logjam has now become a clear decision. Kyle Shanahan has talked about carrying four running backs for the past couple years as a necessity. And I think he's going to do it again. Raheem Mostert had a big run against the Chargers in practice. Trey Sermon has a minor ankle injury right now, but I'm not ruling him out of anything because supposedly it's only minor. And then you got Wayne Gallman and JaMycal Hasty. That's 3 and 4. Fine. Put JaMycal Hasty as 3 and Wayne Gallman as 4. Whatever you want to do. The fact of the matter is the 49ers are going to have to carry 4 running backs because that's what Shanahan deems necessary on the 53-man roster. And these are the guys that are healthy right now. Obviously, Juszczyk is the 5th back, and he's a lock as the fullback. As far as running backs, though, if Elijah Mitchell comes back from, his what's also not a major injury, but if he's back in time here for week 3 of the preseason and he does impress and he's healthy for cut down day, okay, sure, then we can have the discussion. Whose spot does Elijah Mitchell take? Is it Gallman's or is it Hasty's? Guys, if you watch football, Gallman is a lock. I was saying this last night. This is before Brian Baldinger, who's awesome. I love Baldy, but Baldy came on today and was talking about Wayne Gallman's pass protection. Trey Lance's big throw down the sideline to Trent Sherfield against the Chargers? Go back and watch the film. Blitzing linebacker on the play. Wayne Gallman stonewalls him at the line of scrimmage. This is a dependable veteran back. Shanahan wants dependable veteran backs, especially since he's trying to protect 2 quarterbacks this year. You don't want your prized rookie in Trey Lance to be getting hit by free rushing linebackers. Wayne Gallman is a better pass protector, a bit bigger than JaMycal Hasty. And he had a good game yesterday. And I'm not saying anything against JaMycal Hasty. I think he makes the team too. At the very least, JaMycal Hasty is going to be on the practice squad, I think, for the 49ers. I mean, he's got a solid frame, even though he's a smaller guy. He's not going to be a 20 carry per game back, but none of these guys are in the NFL. The biggest body here is Trey Sermon. But, Wayne Gallman's a proven vet. JaMycal Hasty has fought and he's scrapped hard the last couple of weeks, which is why I think the 49ers are comfortable with their 4 right now. But don't discount the vet who did such good things for the New York Giants and who was great in pass protection for the 49ers against the Chargers. Okay, on to the receiving room. I'm just looking to see if there's any questions. Forgive me here for a second. Yeah, there's good questions, but I think we're going to move on to the next one. I have to get through this, guys. Otherwise, people are going to get mad that the video is dragging on. So we're going to try to keep this quick pace. If there's a question that pops out at me, I'll answer it. If there's one that's not, if there's nothing there, then please don't get offended. Here's the receiving room. Here are my 6. If you're familiar with my projection, if you're one of those people that checks it every day, shout out to you. You will notice that I made a change about an hour ago. In green right here, rising stock, I have Travis Benjamin making the 49ers 53-man roster as of right now. This is by no means a finished competition. We still have this entire dress rehearsal week to go, and it's going to be fascinating to see if anybody's able to make their move and usurp Travis Benjamin, because you have Richie James and Simba Webster as 2 legitimate contenders right behind him. I view the 49ers' 6th and final receiver spot, assuming that they carry 6 on the 53-man roster, as a battle between Benjamin, Webster, and Richie James. Why is that? Because of special teams. You have to be able to return kicks. You have to be able to return punts. You have to be able to deliver something beyond the standard offensive game at that number 6 receiver spot. So everybody asking me about Jalen Hurd, that's a potential bonus. That's potential icing on the cake. 49ers aren't counting on it. If Jalen Hurd hypothetically comes back here this week and delivers a monster performance against the Raiders, similar to his performance in 2019 against the Cowboys, and just forces the 49ers' hand, forces them to carry him on the 53-man roster, I do not believe that threatens the spots of any of these 6 players. Unless there's an injury. Jawan Jennings hurt his heel. Supposedly it's minor, but I guess there's a universe in which Jalen Hurd explodes this week. Jennings is more hurt than we thought, and he takes a spot. But I'm assuming that these 6 spots are set, with obviously the Benjamin spot being one that can be taken by Webster or James. If Hurd splashes onto the scene, I think the 49ers carry 7 receivers by necessity, and they have to find a spot somewhere else on the 53-man roster. That's just my gut feel, because I think this 6th spot is a special team spot, a return spot. And we know Jalen Hurd is not going to be returning punts or returning kicks. So Benjamin caught the touchdown pass, the second one from Trey Lance yesterday. Benjamin also had a great week of practice. He'd been, a little uneven, I thought, throughout the first parts of camp, but he was great in the practices against the Chargers. He caught a bomb from Jimmy Garoppolo for a touchdown. Obviously, he was able to handle Trey Lance's fastball, which a lot of 49ers receivers haven't been able to do, with all the drops that we've seen in those situations. But on that touchdown pass, Travis Benjamin caught it. I think he's been okay in the return game. Benjamin also is an accomplished returner. He's a veteran. He has pedigree in that regard, so you can trust the guy in the return game. For all of those reasons, Travis Benjamin's stock is up. And I believe that if, the cut down was right now, I think he'd be the guy. That's just my projection. But Simba Webster, I thought, did a great job yesterday on coverage. We saw a decent kick return from Simba Webster. So, I go back to that game, to open the preseason against the Chiefs, and Webster had that 2-play sequence with the kick return and then the gadget play kind of end around. Didn't yank himself off the field. He wasn't winded after the kick return. You don't see that much. I thought that thrust Simba Webster right into the race, and I really do think it's going to come down to the wire. We're going to see what these guys can do against the Raiders in the dress rehearsal. With Richie James, even though I have him in red and the stock dropping, I don't think he's out of it yet, right? I don't think that Richie James can be discounted, especially after a 34-yard punt return. The drop issues haven't really subsided. You can argue forever about, Trey Lance's heater to Richie James that just seemed to buzz right by his hands. Yes, I think Trey Lance needs to put more touch in some of those passes. Kyle Shanahan agrees with that. I think Trey agrees with that. He might be a little overamped in these games. But if we're looking specifically at the situation with Richie James, he's dropped such a handful of passes during training camp that he needs to start making the plus catches. So yes, that ball that, just zoomed by him from Trey Lance, I think it was in the third quarter yesterday, Yes, that would have entailed and required a plus catch from Richie James. But Richie James is in a position where he needs to make plus catches right now. Again, he's got another shot. So does Jalen Hurd. So does Simba Webster. So does Travis Benjamin. All of these guys will have another shot in the dress rehearsal against the Raiders on Sunday. So this is going to be a fun football game. Really excited for that. Obviously, you got Ayuk, Samuel, Sanu, Sherfield, Jennings. I talked about Jennings in a separate video, so make sure you check that out. Quick break to see some questions. This is actually a good one. Let's put this one up here. Do you think they would limit Hurd in the last game specifically to avoid him having a monster game so they could stash him on the practice squad? Yeah, so the roster maneuverings are going to be really interesting here moving forward because you're absolutely right. The 49ers, it's not going to be a black and white thing. A lot of people act like the 53-man roster is the final roster the 49ers will ever put together, in all of 2021. But in all reality, it's only the roster at cutdown day. That roster could still change in the 2 weeks before the season opener at Detroit, and it will change on a weekly basis. So, especially with a larger practice squad still in place with 16 players, it is in the 49ers' interest to think in terms of the big picture. With Jalen Hurd, everybody likes to roast the guy about his injuries, and obviously he hasn't been available yet for the 49ers in 2+ seasons. But you have to remember the reality of the situation. He is a guy coming off an ACL tear a year ago, and it is remarkably normal for a player a year off an ACL tear to still be suffering some lingering effects. I mean, some guys are like Nick Bosa, Jerry Rice, remember him, how quickly he came back? I mean, some guys are special, and yes, they are back within that 8 or 9 month window. But for a lot of players, it takes even longer than the year. So if the 49ers do believe that Jalen Hurd is still a player that has a ton of potential, but that he's just kind of on an average return to play timetable coming back from that ACL tear, and he is dealing with knee tendonitis that's related to that ACL tear, absolutely they might want to keep him around while recognizing that he's not quite ready to play yet. The problem is to keep him around in a way that would make Jalen Hurd eligible to play this year, to get him on one of those short-term IR spots, right, where you could bring him back after 3 weeks so you have flexibility. He has to make the initial 53-man roster. He has to take somebody else's spot. So it puts the 49ers between a rock and a hard place because there's so many good players on this football team. If Jalen Hurd takes somebody's spot, then that person can get picked up by another team. Then again, if you want to put Jalen Hurd straight on IR right now, you can waive him with an injury designation, but the problem is that another team might pick him up, right? Because other teams in the NFL might be familiar with what Jalen Hurd did in 2019, and they might view it as somebody worth taking a flyer on, just based on that one game and based on the potential. So if you are trying to sneak Jalen Hurd onto your practice squad, you want to keep stuff as quiet as possible. And I guess you can waive him because he's still on the rookie contract. He's still within that 4-year window. I guess you can waive him and just cross your fingers and hope. But anything that he does do positively, whether it be in practice, because it's reported by people like me, or during a preseason game, anything that he does do lowers your chances of retaining him. Now, let me put this out here. I have no idea how the 49ers are thinking about this situation. This is one thing that they've been relatively quiet on. They've kept us completely in the dark. I know that Shanahan, is obviously frustrated by the lack of availability from Jalen Hurd. He does know there's talent there, and, he would like to see him force his way onto the team. I don't know what the 49ers are thinking of in terms of a potential longer-term solution in case Jalen Hurd is not ready right away, if he doesn't explode next week. There's several options. I just outlined one of them to kind of release and stash him, if nobody picks him up on waivers. So I guess you'd waive him. You wouldn't release him. You could only release the veterans who aren't subject to waivers. A guy like Nate Sudfeld, he's a veteran. He has enough accrued time in the league. Maurice Hurst, another example No, not Maurice Hurst. Sorry, Maurice Hurst would still be waiver eligible. Zach Kerr would be an example of a player who has enough veteran service time to where you would be able to release him and then bring him back and re-sign him, and you could do a lot of roster maneuverings that way if you have a pre-existing deal, like a wink wink arrangement with the guy. With Nate Sudfeld, it seems that the 49ers essentially have that with the $252,000 of guaranteed money that they gave him. They can bring him back to that practice squad. So these are all questions that I'll get into more detail about next week, because right now we don't know what's going to happen this week. We don't know if the 49ers will suffer more injuries. We don't know who's going to explode onto the scene, because, yeah, hey, maybe there is a 5% chance that Jalen Hurd has a massive game and forces the issue on Sunday. Well, if that happens, that shakes up the whole roster conversation. That's why it's really hard to know for sure how these backroom deals are going to work around the time of the 53-man cut down until we know the exact situation that the 49ers are dealing with. And as you can tell, there's still some key stuff unsettled heading into this week. Time to move down to the tight end room. Okay, Kittle's a lock. Dwelly's got all, full salary guaranteed. It's league minimum or a little bit more than that, but it's guaranteed. We know Dwelly's a lock. Then you have Charlie Warner and Michael Pruitt, with Jordan Matthews currently on the outside looking in. Matthews didn't get quite as much run in week 2 as he did in week 1. That's because Michael Pruitt was back from his calf issue, and the 49ers are working Pruitt back in. It wasn't a great game for Pruitt, committed a couple penalties. And Charlie Warner had an interesting game. Charlie Warner was great run blocking yesterday. Just pull up the film. And this guy's gotten stronger. This is something that Charlie excelled at in college at Georgia, but I thought that he needed to put on a little bit more muscle over this past off season. And Charlie's done that. Well, I think Warner has benefited from spending a lot of time with George Kittle out there in the barn in Nashville, putting up those weights. And he's straining through his run blocks now. He knows the playbook. He's doing a great job. Warner, though, did struggle on 2 occasions in pass protection yesterday. On the very first drive of the game, when Jimmy Garoppolo was in, the 49ers faced second down, and Warner had to try to block Kyler Fackrell. Now, Fackrell is one of the Chargers' outside linebackers, so an edge rusher in that scheme. Fackrell really just backed Warner into Garoppolo. Fackrell hit Garoppolo, and the throw was offline. It was a tough block for sure. Warner was lined up, on the right side, kind of an H-back roll. He had to cross over the formation and pick up Fackrell. That's not easy. You see Kyle Juszczyk tasked to that block, and a big play happened a few years ago in 2019, week 2 at Cincinnati, where the 49ers asked Kyle Juszczyk to cross the formation in the same way, or a similar way they asked Charlie Warner to do it, and pick up Carlos Dunlap, who we know is a big-time defensive end, now with Seattle, but was with Cincinnati. And Juszczyk executed the block perfectly. Garoppolo hit, who I believe was Marquise Goodwin, downfield for a big gain. Shanahan asks his tight ends, his fullbacks, even his receivers occasionally, to make difficult blocks like that a lot. That's what allows Shanahan's scheme to deliver some of the efficient complexities that it does. You have to be able to block in ways that, skill position guys often are not able to block around the NFL. That makes the 49ers unique. And I think the rest of the league is starting to pick that up. That's why you're seeing this move to positionless football. You're seeing receivers who are able to block and blockers who are able to catch, vice versa, right? The tight end who can only block is going extinct. You have to be able to run routes as well. And it's all spearheaded by, the schematic advantage that it can drive. So we've seen Charlie Warner add the receiving game to his repertoire. He caught that nice pass from Trey Lance in week 1. He's combined the pass catching ability, or he's shown that potential, I think, an intriguing amount of it, to go with the run blocking. But the pass blocking left something to be desired yesterday. Warner gave up 2 pressures, and that one, the Fackrell, wasn't good at the start of the game. That's the kind of stuff the 49ers are going to need to clean up, because you need to be able to have guys that can make that block coming across the formation like Juszczyk has done, like Kittle has done, because that's what's going to protect Jimmy Garoppolo. That's what's going to protect Trey Lance. And that's what's going to allow your quarterbacks in a Shanahan system to operate, deliver, and succeed from the pocket. Those are the type of blocks you have to make. It's not a standard left tackle, right tackle system. Shanahan runs a lot of intricate action in the backfield that demands other guys pick up edge rushers occasionally. And that was a play that I wondered about. That being said, I still project Charlie Warner to make the roster. I think he's done so much good in run blocking. I love the receiving ability that he's flashed. And the 49ers gave Michael Pruitt $500,000 in guaranteed money. He was rusty yesterday, but I expected him to be rusty, and we're still, 3 weeks away from the season opener. I'd still be shocked if Michael Pruitt, who's the stockiest of the 49ers tight ends, doesn't make this football team. I mean, the 49ers, he was Delaney Walker's replacement in Tennessee. The 49ers signed him to be, a road grading type that can also catch. And to be honest, he's played the position a whole lot longer than Jordan Matthews. Jordan Matthews is a great story right now. I'm not discounting him, but he may need some more refinement time for the blocking at the tight end position after putting on those 20 pounds. The 49ers might not be, completely averse to letting Matthews slip into the 53-man roster if one of these 4 guys gets hurt. And, that's why he's on the roster right now. But assuming that you have these 4 healthy, I do think that Matthews is a guy that is destined for the practice squad, at least to begin. That's just my read on the situation at tight end. Warner's basically McGlinchey light. Well, yeah, but Warner's a tight end that's also able to go out and catch the ball. So the thing is, though, the positionless skill positions also mean that you have to be able to do all kinds of blocking in Shanahan's offense. And, you saw George Kittle do when the 49ers were just so beaten up front late in that 2019 season. Remember 2 of the biggest downs of the year against the Rams, the 2 3rd and 16s that Garoppolo converted to Kendrick Bourne, and then further downfield to Emmanuel Sanders. On both of those plays, George Kittle stayed back, and he was in pass protection. So you see Juszczyk in important pass protection, Kittle important pass protection, and that's why I think it was notable that Warner blew what was a key pass protection on the first drive yesterday. I'm not ripping Warner. I analyze these games, cold, hard facts. Like that's something that Kyle Shanahan, I'm sure, is telling Warner he has to get better at. And I'm sure that he'll make strides in it because he did in that run blocking. And, I also don't want to read too far into 1 rep or 2 reps because there were 2 pressures, which is why I have Warner making the 53-man roster. He's still on there. 49ers are still developing him. Yeah, no, I understand. I just thought it was funny. McGlinchey has tight end background as well, which is funny. But okay, let's go through the offensive line. This is important. Will the 49ers take 8 or 9? Today, Kyle Shanahan said that's what the decision is going to be. It's going to be between 8 or 9. Again, a lot of this depends on where the 49ers are at other spots of the roster, and we can't possibly know what injuries will happen this week, who's going to explode on Sunday against the Raiders. I have tended to think that the 49ers will only take 8 linemen because I don't see 9 NFL caliber offensive linemen on this roster. I see 8, and obviously one is listed in brown here because Aaron Banks is hurt right now. So he's dealing with that AC joint sprain in his shoulder. 49ers hope to have Aaron Banks back by week 1. He's definitely not going to start, though, because he wasn't ready to start in week 1 of the preseason when he got hurt, and now he's missing time. Brunskill's your starter at right guard, barring injury. We probably will see Mack and Williams, at least for a bit, here in week 3. Tomlinson's been playing. He's durable. Here's your left guard. McGlinchey's your right tackle. 1 through 5, 49ers starting offensive line is set. We haven't seen them together yet in a game. Hopefully, I want to see them together against the Raiders, and I think Shanahan does too, because, I just made another video the other day that you should watch about how important Alex Mack and that center position is to coordinating everybody. So I think the 49ers need to work on that a little bit in the dress rehearsal. The question here is, who are linemen 6 through 8, and how do they fit into the larger 49ers project up front? Because if you don't have 7 quality offensive linemen, you're not going deep, and you're not going deep into the playoffs, especially. I think Jalen Moore has emerged as a quality offensive lineman. I really think that the 49ers are happy with his performance. Clean sheet yesterday, played the whole game at left tackle, 33 pass protecting snaps, no pressures. Now, that comes with an asterisk. Corey Lemonier, remember the 49ers former defensive end, his brother, a younger brother, Jesse Lemonier, Chargers reserve, came in and just beat Jalen Moore around the edge and drilled Nate Sudfeld late, but he drilled Nate Sudfeld so hard that it was roughing the passer. So technically not a pressure allowed by Jalen Moore. But, he did get beat once. But that's not to take away from what I thought was another solid day at the office for Jalen Moore, who is showing the 49ers that he can be trusted help at that left tackle position. Again, this is a guy's nice and strong, built well. Watch him do some pull-ups, weighted pull-ups in college, and you'll see that's an NFL-ready body. Kind of like Colton McKivitz, who wasn't really an NFL-ready body, I thought, his first year, but has strengthened this second year. I think McKivitz has been playing well. His week 1 was better than his week 2, but in general, everybody was freaking out about the 49ers second team offensive line after week 1 against the Chiefs. 49ers second team offensive line played really well against the Chargers yesterday. So, this is week by week stuff, guys. We can't live and die by every single pass, like people like to do with Trey Lance. We can't live and die with every single game for the second team offensive line. I thought that we saw a good play from McKivitz. Jake Brendel, the center, only gave up one pressure yesterday. It wasn't bad. The liabilities here. Corbin Kaufusi gave up the sack. He didn't look good. Tom Compton, we know Tom Compton is. He's a veteran. So you have some of these players who, definitely won't make the 53-man roster. I mean, if there are enough injuries, maybe a guy like Tom Compton comes in because he's a veteran that knows the scheme. But if it gets to that point, I don't think the 49ers are in a good spot at all. It's important that Moore and McKivitz have shown out well so far. For McKivitz, it's been a big improvement over 2020, in my opinion. And I think he's now, at least semi-trusted guard depth. I think Moore is trusted tackle depth. And obviously, you need at least one more body, and the 49ers hope that's Banks. They really do. In an ideal world, Banks just surges after his injury, takes that right guard spot at some point, and then you feel a lot better. The Brunskill floating around, being able to, fill in anywhere. But, beggars can't be choosers. So the 49ers, it is thin. It's a little precarious along the offensive line right now. But you do have to like the starting 5 compared to what it was last year, especially with Alex Mack in there right now and Brunskill at least playing right guard and not center. Beyond that, though, it's iffy, and we'll see what the 49ers do. But I think there are only 8 NFL 53-man roster capable guys here. I know Brendel's been playing better. The question is, do the 49ers really want to use yet another roster spot on a backup center when Daniel Brunskill can do that? The benefit there is if Mack gets hurt in a game and you don't have Jake Brendel, that means that Brunskill has to move to center, and that means that you're now disrupting 2 spots instead of 1. So you disrupt your center and your right guard spot. So if you carry Brendel, then an injury to Mack means that Brendel steps in for Mack and Brunskill stays at right guard. That's what the 8 versus 9 difference is going to, in the roster complexion, is going to come down to in the offensive line. What happened to Sean Coleman? I thought he was a Kyle favorite in Atlanta. The problem is that Sean Coleman hasn't played since 2016 in an NFL game. I mean, it's been like half a decade since Sean Coleman has played. So, I mean, just not a guy that now he's hurt again too. He's been missing practice. Just not a guy that you can, rely on. It's just been one thing after another with Sean Coleman. Bad luck, of course, but we're talking about building an NFL roster here. And so far, Jalen Moore has definitely been the man for the 49ers at that swing tackle spot. All right, time to move to the defense. Everybody having fun? Just taking a bit of a break here for my voice. Waiting for any questions that come in. By the way, as I move to the defense, I am now on TikTok, Lombardi himself. Make sure you follow on Instagram, Lombardi himself. Lombardi himself, I think, across all of them, Twitter as well, Lombardi himself. But I'm going to just try to branch out to all these social media channels, make this season as fun as possible for you. So TikTok, I know I'm not as familiar with it. Maybe my viewers aren't, but I think YouTube is a younger demographic. So I think some of you might have TikTok. So go ahead, follow me on there. It would be fun. Maybe I'll remind you again once more at the end of the show. All right, defense. Here are your 10 defensive linemen. And I do think the 49ers carry 10. Outside chance they carry 11, but doesn't look like it anymore, especially given the injuries and the Jordan Willis suspension. Bosa, Armstead, DJ Jones, Sansom Ebucom, Arden Key, Javon Kinlaw, Zach Kerr, D Ford, Kevin Givens, and Kentavious Street, whose stock is rising thanks to his 4 pressure performance last night. Street looks great. And Street, why don't we, this is a good chance to show you guys something cool here. I've done a workout with Street before. There we are. This was in 2019. Aqua Bread is this innovative underwater training. It really helps with injury prevention. So I wrote a big feature on it. And this is Kentavious Street. That's him on the left. It's Jalen Richard and Johnny Townsend. They were with the Raiders at the time. Townsend, the punter. This is in Oakland. We're underwater at the pool. And you guys know my swimming background. So this was super cool for me to be able to do some stuff in the water with Kentavious Street. It was great. 1 second. My grandma's calling me down here. I'm in Visalia, so I'm talking to her, taking care of her here at home. Anyway, check this out with Kentavious Street. This was when he was rehabbing from his ACL. So a lot of this water resistant stuff and literally taking the bench press and the squat rack and everything underwater, help if you read the whole piece, which I'll share right now. But I think it's a big part of his return to health because he really had some nagging injury issues for quite a while. And when you do work and you get into the science of everything in the piece that I just linked there, when you do work in that water, you're developing the fascia, which kind of envelops the whole body. It's a different layer of, skin, or it's not really skin. You have to read the piece, but it does help with the durability. And hopefully for Kentavious Street's sake, he's able to stay healthy because we're seeing that exceptional strength translates to the football field this year. After yesterday's performance and, after Maurice Hurst's high ankle sprain, got to throw Kentavious Street in there. He is one of your top 10 defensive linemen. I don't think there's any question about who your top 10 are now, because the thing is, Jordan Willis, as good as he's looked, he's going to be suspended for the first 6 games of this 2021 season, that performance enhancing drug policy violation. So Jordan Willis is not going to get paid. Bad for him. This might end up working out well for the 49ers because by week 7, when Willis is activated, he's going to be able to swoop in there. And I think by that point, the 49ers are going to need fresh legs. They're going to need a reinforcement because guys are going to get hurt. That's the reality of football. That's what we learned with Maurice Hurst's injury. The thing is that before this all happened, before that injury, I wasn't sure who the 49ers are going to cut, who they're going to trade. The logjam now, though, is essentially gone. I think Darian Daniels they like. Alex Barrett made a play last night. Eddie Yarborough's been delivering pressure. I mean, Shalik Calhoun logged a sack this week in practice. All these guys are practice squad eligible. But as far as roster guys, these are your 10, plus Maurice Hurst, who, the 49ers might try to sneak him on to short-term IR. And the way that the 49ers could theoretically do that is, for short-term IR with a high ankle sprain because he's eligible to return, the 49ers have to carry Maurice Hurst on their initial 53-man roster. Because if you put him on IR before then, he can't return all year. So they could theoretically cut a guy like Zach Kerr with a backroom deal with Zach Kerr. And they'll tell, hey, Zach, just wait until we put Maurice Hurst on IR and we'll re-sign you to the roster. You can't do that with a player like Kevin Givens or, Arden Key or anybody who has less than 4 years of NFL experience, because you would have to waive them, and then all 31 other NFL teams would have a chance to put in a waiver claim on that player. But with a veteran like Zach Kerr, 32-year-old veteran, you can actually release him and then bring him back into the fold, assuming that he agrees to sign with you, that he doesn't just jump ship and try to sign with somebody else. But given how complimentary Zach Kerr was about the 49ers and why he wanted to sign here, I think he would fully understand such a move if it does come to that. Again, we won't know until next week. But if it were today, if the 49ers had to make the cut down today, I would absolutely think about a maneuver like that. Cut Zach Kerr, put Maurice Hurst on short-term IR, bring Zach Kerr right back the next day. It happens all the time, every year. So I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers did something like that. A defensive line, which is the strongest position group on this roster. Just so impressive. This is why you get deep on the defensive line, guys. This is why you overfill it with depth, because injuries are going to happen. You don't want 2020 repeating itself for the 49ers. So they loaded up this year. They got 12 really capable 53-man roster type guys. And I'm sure they're happy about that now, because only 10 of them, as it stands, and we're not even done with the preseason, are still standing for a potential play week 1. By the way, this dude right here, Nick Bosa, have you heard of him? He's going to be back at practice this week in full 11-on-11 action. So really excited about that. Everybody likes to watch Nick Bosa. If you like football, you like watching Nick Bosa play. And yeah, this was the question I just answered. I mean, I didn't see it until now, but I answered it preemptively. Yeah, I think the 49ers might absolutely do that, but I just won't know till next week. Luke asks, does Willis count against the 53? No, he won't. Not for those first 6 weeks. So then when Willis comes back after the suspension, then he will take a spot. But at that point, you'll have a spot, theoretically, right? Because of an injury or something of that sort. Again, the final 53-man roster doesn't exist. That's a myth. The 53-man roster is the first 53-man roster, the first of many, and it's a constantly fluid changing object. All right, 2 more position groups. On to the linebackers. So here you see the linebackers, just highlight them. You see 2 greens here. Those are 2 rising stocks. That's Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, who I thought was fantastic against the Chargers. I really liked how Flanagan-Fowles played. Very first kickoff, he was in there, made the tackle. Just a spark plug of energy, long linebacker who can deliver on special teams. And then I really liked the little blitz that Flanagan-Fowles on a run blitz showed later in the game. You know, it's tough for guys with longer bodies like that. I know that Fred Warner's mastered it, but when you're that tall, it ain't easy. It really isn't to squeeze through and make plays in the backfield. It's something that Jaquiski Tartt is really good at. Those run blitzes, the wiggle, the maneuverability, even with a big enough body to, you know, play the pass, to be good in coverage. He's still able to control the longer limbs, to get through linemen, to get into the backfield, to make plays. I saw that from Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles yesterday. Again, another one of those tall linebackers. I think he's on track to make the roster. I really do. I thought he was impressive yesterday. And, you know, Marcel Harris, he made a couple pop plays yesterday. I know they came against the 3rd string or the 4th string or whatever you want to call them. But there's so much value in having a guy at linebacker with safety coverage skills. I know that Harris struggled further away from the line of scrimmage. We all get it. We all saw what happened against New Orleans. That was probably the low point in 2019. But the guy can still cover, especially in closed spaces, and not all linebackers can say that. And the guy still loves to hit. He's a football player, right? Called himself the hardest hitter in the SEC back during college at Florida. I just don't see this football team without Marcel Harris on it. I think the 49ers love him as linebacker depth. Now, their other reserves played well. I mean, Jonas Griffith, the thing dropped off a bit. He had that face mask penalty yesterday after week 1, but he still moves, still really moves. I saw good stuff from Justin Hilliard, saw good stuff from Elijah Sullivan. Unfortunately, Michael Kendricks, veteran the 49ers brought in, is going to be out for a month with a turf toe injury. So, you know, I don't know what happens in that situation, but they may have to make some roster moves to make that work. But Kendricks is not in the initial 53 discussion anymore. I really think out of all these guys, I think, you know, these are practice squad type of names. Maybe Jonas Griffith has graduated past that level, but Hilliard and Sullivan, practice squad names for sure. Griffith potentially still knocking on the door to move up. But if it's between Jonas Griffith and Marcel Harris, I think you go Marcel Harris. And I think Flanagan-Fowles is certainly there. Obviously, your starters, your top 3 are Warner, Greenlaw, and Al-Shaair. If you just got on, then you could watch the replay when this is done, because I can't give a quick rundown of something that's been going on for 48 minutes. I'm sorry. But, yeah, the replays are there. A lot more people are watching. Share it with your friends. Let's get some smart 49ers conversation going, because there's a lot of stupid 49ers conversation out there. I'm not going to beat around the bush anymore. You know, yesterday, and I'll talk about this in the quarterback video I'll put out, yesterday is the price that people paid for being knee-jerk reactors to everything. Everybody, you know, Garoppolo throws the ball high, obviously, for Brandon Ayuk. And it bounces off his hands. He should have caught it, obviously. He's a number one wide receiver. 49ers drafted him in the first round. It was patently obvious that Kyle Shanahan would want Ayuk to catch that. But of course, because there's a subset of Twitter that just irrationally hates Jimmy Garoppolo, um, of course, it was uncatchable. It's all on Garoppolo. He's got to throw a better ball. So the dumbest comment of the day was a QB1 makes that throw. What does that even mean? So then the very next drive, Trey Lance steps in there and he throws the exact same high pass that is also knocked up in there, also should have been caught. Oh, but I thought a QB1 made that throw. So the same people are just so hopelessly biased, can't just evaluate a quarterback competition, just a general competition for what it is. They just want their guy, their guy, their guy. They got the same exact situation that they willfully disregarded 5 minutes before. Then the same exact thing happened. And then Lance threw one that bounced off another receiver's hands, off of Sanu's hands, right? The second time. First one was Debo, second one was Sanu, and was picked. I mean, it was poetry. It was absolute poetry. And it's, guys, this is your punishment this is what you get. This is the preseason gods telling you this is what you get for living and dying by every single pass in training camp and in preseason games. When the whole time, if you're paying any attention, if you showcased any basic understanding of how this works, you would have realized this is all practice. These guys are getting reps. This is big picture. You have to learn how to track a whole training camp and track development. Trey Lance is doing great. Exactly what the 49ers thought he'd be coming out of college at North Dakota State. Jimmy Garoppolo is getting his reps in. The receivers obviously are still getting their reps in. But this whole living and dying by every single rep has got to stop. So I know I went off on a tangent there. I'm going to get more into that in the quarterback video. But that was just funny yesterday. The reason I do these videos and make them so long is because I don't, I want to cover everything fairly. I don't want to cover it in 140 characters and then pretend that I did, because you never can. All right, we're going to go into the last position group. We're almost there. Defensive back. So this is going to be safety and cornerback, and obviously nickel as well. Verrett, Mosley, K1, Tavon Wilson, who's your current starting strong safety, Jimmy Ward. I mean, if the 49ers played their first regular season game tomorrow, those would be your five across. Deommodore Lenoir, I mean, the guy I don't think has given up a catch yet in preseason, or at least a passer rating is 0, according to Pro Football Focus. He's coming along quicker than Ambry Thomas, and maybe we could have expected this because Ambry opted out of the 2020 season. I think he still has some work in the weight room to go. Deommodore has just looked more ready for the physical brand of NFL play than Ambry Thomas. And I'm not panicking about Ambry Thomas by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, the guy did miss all of 2020, kind of like Trey Lance did miss a lot of 2020. And I think we see that rustiness come in because of that. And that's why you got a boom or bust situation with Trey Lance. Well, with Ambry Thomas, he's done some nice things, but also there's been penalties. He's been beaten a couple times. I think Lenoir is a guy that's just popped more. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he was in football in 2020. So obviously they're both going to make the roster. There's intense interest about both of these guys. But Lenoir, the reason that he's so interesting to me is if the 49ers end up trusting him enough, they don't have to carry Dante Johnson. I don't have Dante Johnson on my 53-man projection right now. You can see he's on the right side of the delineating line. But I wouldn't be surprised if they carried Dante Johnson, if they had to carve out an extra spot for him, because he is trusted veteran depth. He's not a great player. Nobody's saying Dante Johnson's a lockdown corner, but you saw what untrusted depth could cost you in Brian Allen last year against Miami. So Dante Johnson is a player that I think very well may make this 49ers 53-man roster, unless Deommodore Lenoir shows up next week and, over the course of all these practices and absolutely announces that he's a veteran presence for the 49ers. I don't know if that's likely. He's impressed so far. We'll see how D'Amico Ryans, we'll see how this coaching staff thinks. So you might have to allocate one more spot for Dante Johnson, but maybe not. Hufanga. Wow, this guy's instinctual. Great player. Great potential. I'm not going to call him a great player yet, but he's just a football player, there is great potential here with those instincts. You're not born, you're either born with those instincts or you're not. You're not going to develop those instincts to be like a guy who's born with them, because everybody would, that runs a 4.340 would be a Hall of Fame player if those instincts could be taught. I just feel that Hufanga has them, even though he's a 4.640 guy. He's impressive. For now, Clinton Dix is my other safety. Jared Maiden, look out for him. Had the pick six that got called back yesterday, but I thought he was good all around the football. He's versatile too. Maiden could play nickel. Maiden can play corner. Maiden can play safety. Wouldn't be surprised if Jared Maiden forced his way onto this roster, especially after making a play yesterday. So, Clinton Dix is interesting because he's a veteran. He has the pedigree. I think Kaina Kua has been playing really well. A couple pass breakups, had that sack yesterday. He'd be a practice squad guy. And then I'm just not sure about like Jaquaski Tart. Probably start the season on an injury list. He's still dealing with that turf toe, but I've also heard that he might be closer to returning than some people think. These are back of the roster guys, and Devontae Harris and Alexander Myers may be working for practice squad spot along with BW Webb. But the big question for me is Dante Johnson here, and then Maiden. Maiden in green, stock rising. Does he take Clinton Dix's spot? And for every guy on the right side, right? For every guy on the right side here, the 49ers, if they move him to the left side and he makes that 53-man roster, the 49ers are going to have to free up a spot. So that's going to bring me back to the start, and that's Nate Sudfeld. There's a very good chance that we do this. We put Nate Sudfeld over on the right, and that means that he'll be on the practice squad. Only 2 quarterbacks. That ties into everything else, because you could see it at least takes one difficult decision away from the 49ers, and they can carry somebody else. Anyway, that is the 53-man roster. Maybe one more question? Yeah, one more question. Will Mosley be ready week 1? I think so. I think it's a minor hamstring issue. So that's 3 weeks away. Mosley should be ready. I would anticipate actually that he even plays against the Raiders. Maybe not, but Mosley will be ready. All right, guys. We went for 57 minutes. I have a good voice. It doesn't die. I could talk forever about this kind of stuff. I'll be out with more stuff. Anyway, follow me on TikTok. Follow me on Instagram. Subscribe on YouTube. And make sure that you like the video or do whatever they ask you to do on YouTube. I don't know. I just want to put good stuff out there for you guys. I want to put smart stuff out there for you guys. There is a shortage of it. Let's take care of that problem. So share this with all your friends. Get everybody to join, and make sure that you check out The Athletic and the Here's the Catch podcast. We're going to have another episode this week. All right, guys. Thank you to everybody. Everybody have a good evening. Take care.